Hi everybody, thanks for tuning in today. So today I'm going to be giving you a walkthrough of what happened during my instrument rating skills test, so hopefully it can help you if you're coming close to yours. If you find this useful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Right, I'll get straight into it then. So I guess before I get going, one thing that everybody will find during their pilot training is at some stage you'll come up to a certain point where you will find something that you struggle with. Everybody does it. And for me, I think it was definitely during my multi-engine instrument rating course. I'm not sure why, because generally with my flying ability, I've generally been okay and not been any issues, but I think it was just a mental thing. So to get around that, I found I had to look maybe outside of flying to get myself mentally in the right place. So one of the books that helped me was Building an Athlete's Mind by David Samuel. And I'm sure you'll all come up to a certain sticking point somewhere along your flight training. And yeah, it's always good to just bear in mind that it's not always on the airfield or with your instructor that the answer can be. It might just be looking away somewhere else. One of the other things that I did was just ask as many people as I could and to speak to as many people as I could about how they got through their multi-engine instrument rating. And I got loads of different answers. One of my favourite was from a close friend of mine. He said, look, you'll get through your instrument rating as long as you're prepared not to blink for 2 hours. And that always rang through with me because I just thought, do you know what, that sums it up. It's just a total commitment and total determination just to focus and to get the job done. And I think most people during the professional training will find a certain point somewhere where you just have to push through and get the results that you need to do. On the mental aspect, I think most people tend to find the professional flight training, CPL, MEIR, IR, becomes quite a mental game for the reason that you're probably doing a level of precision flying that you'll never ever be able to do again in your airline career, to be totally honest, because you never really will have to fly to such a tolerance with the level of workload that you have as a single pilot. So of course enjoy it, but it definitely is hard, but don't worry, you will get through. Right, so for this video then, I'll break it up basically as was my skills test. Start off with the briefing, then the departure, joining an airway, flying to Humberside for an ILS approach, engine failure, missed approach procedure, and then back to Doncaster to fly the hold asymmetric, and then asymmetric NDB procedure before missed approach, and then recovering back to Gamston for a bad weather circuit. So before the test, the instructor gave me the route to plan, so I did that. It's fairly straightforward in IFR. It's not quite as involving as VFR for CPL. Got the route planned, flight plan, all the usual sort of thing. Again, I'm not going to drill down too much into that on this video as it's been covered elsewhere plenty. And I met the instructor to start briefing. And the briefing, again, as you would expect, go through all the tolerances, what's expected of you, how it's going to go, and so on and so forth. And I went out, checked the aircraft, and then the examiner then came back, and then we met together in the aircraft and then started from there. So the departure itself, it was a little bit non-standard for me. It was VFR out of Gamston and then speaking to Doncaster radar to join the airway and then go from there. So for the departure itself, this was probably one of the first issues that I had on the test, is I was a little bit nervous and maybe quite unsettled. Coming out of Gamston then, with the changeover between Gamston and Doncaster radar, this is where I was a little bit nervous and hadn't quite settled into the flight, so I found one of the issues here. Been given basically a simple heading and an altitude to climb to facilitate my clearance to join controlled airspace via the airway. I was flying the Garmin G1000 and I was trying to bug the altitude, if I remember correctly, but it just wouldn't do it. But what I was doing was actually turning the volume for the radio up and up and up. So again, the bit of advice I'll give you there is it's a really, really simple thing, but potentially I might have even failed my test on there because I just couldn't work the avionics, which I'd flown forever and had done loads of experience on. So it's just important to relax and just take it easy and try and enjoy it. Again, it's really difficult to do. So once I'd figured out my mistake, which I was trying to turn the volume other than bug the altitude that I needed to get to, I corrected that. But then I just said to myself, look mate, you just need to relax, take it easy and calm down and settle into the flight. So that was the first lesson, calm down and just try and relax into it. Moving on then, join the airway fine, and then continuing now on to destination for me, which was Humberside. A couple of things to be aware of during your multi-engine instrument rating skills test, one of which is you're still in charge of the flight. So I can't remember who it was at the time, which agency I was speaking to, but they'd basically forgotten about me and hadn't given me descent. And about 30 miles to go, I thought, you better start getting your descent. We're flight level 90. So a simple way for you to figure out how many track miles you need is multiply your flight level by 3. I was at flight level 90 times by 3, 27 miles. miles. I thought, well, 30 miles is really the cut-off point, and then I'll be asking for descent. So again, I had to prompt them for descent. Now, one of the areas that a lot of people get caught on is you're still responsible for your terrain clearance, although you are IFR. Now, the radar service will try their best to help you with that, but ultimately you as a pilot need to stop yourself getting a CFIT scenario. So until you get into the protected area, anytime you get descent, and it applies right now in the real life when I do fly on the line, is sometimes you'll get a descent that puts you below MSA or puts you in conflict with terrain, so you need to be really, really careful. So again, when I got the descent, just a quick check to make sure that, yep, I could accept that before getting into the protected area, and then start the descent. And onwards in. So in the setup now, going towards Humberside, expecting to do the ILS. I'd flown them previously before the flight to negotiate it. I checked the ATIS, and the ATIS says, oh, the ILS is out of service. So I'm thinking, gosh, that wasn't what was planned. What's going on here? So again, just kept calm, checked with the examiner and said, I've just got the ATIS, feeling a little bit silly that I could have made such a fundamental mistake, and it says the ILS is out of service when we're planning to do an ILS. So in my mind, I'm thinking maybe we'll switch it to an NDB, let's see what the examiner says. And the examiner just said to me, don't worry, continue. So I then checked in with Humberside, and they said, oh, the ILS was just temporarily off because we're cutting the grass, but we'll put it back on for you. Again, it's really super important just to keep calm. And we got in, flew a pretty good ILS. This ILS I was struggling during the training with to get it finessed to the level. I mean, I could fly it, but it wasn't quite comfortable. The good thing that my flight school helped me with was they made sure that I did a little bit more on the ILS side just to make sure that my raw data ILS was fine. And since then, I've never struggled. So flew the ILS fine, one of my best ones, and then continuing on now, down to minimums, go around, and then on the go around we had an engine failure. So again, the important thing is just try and keep calm. During my MEIR course, that was one of the areas that I had to really work on, is during the emergencies, just really try and relax as much as you can. So again, did the engine failure procedure fine, and then now climbing out, all okay, looking good. So the next thing I'd like to add now is really just be able to adapt to a changing plan. So all the way during my flying course for my multi-engine instrument rating, it was normal that you'd fly your non-precision approach with both engines, have the engine failure there, and then you'd do a single engine ILS approach. Whereas on the exam, I had a dual engine ILS approach, which is completely fine, but then I had to do the non-precision and the holding asymmetric. So I just kept remembering, again, the main things that my instructor said is just make sure you manage your rudder well when you're asymmetric, because on an NDB approach that can screw you over. So got into heading towards Doncaster now, into the hold, single engine, and then single engine NDB approach again. Now I hadn't done this, I wasn't expecting to do this, but that's just the way the exam rolled out. You can't say to the examiner, no, I'm not doing it. You've just got to roll with the punches. So it's just really important just to have enough within you to just adapt to the changing plan and just not be too perturbed and just roll with the punches. So yeah, flew the hold fine, and then through the NDB procedure fine, and then we did a bad weather circuit recovery back to Gamston. Into Gamston now VFR, that again completely fine again, and then landed and then fine. One thing I would note is when I was flying my NDB approach, I got pretty close to the hard altitude for MDA, which is quite important that you don't bust. And again, just be super, super careful. I found the IR wasn't so much a test of your flying skills, it was just more your ability to concentrate for the solid 2 hours that it takes to get through your IR. I landed back at Gamston, and then the examiner left me to secure the aircraft and put all the chocks in and all that sort of thing, and he walked back to the briefing room. Now, important thing, as I mentioned in the CPL, how to pass your CPL video, again, if you missed it, link in the top right, is don't jump in and try and ask the examiner what was the result, because most of them like to have a little bit of space and time just to think about what just happened. So I tidied up and then went back to the briefing room, and he shook my hand and said, congratulations, you've passed your multi-engine instrument rating. And then we went through and we debriefed the flight. They opened the table to ask, how did you feel? And I was being quite hard on myself, and, gave a number of the issues that I had, that I've just described, trying to bug an altitude by setting the volume and all that sort of thing. And he just said, look, you flew a good flight, nothing to worry about, all really good. And he was genuinely really happy with that. So I guess what I learned from the day was, by the time you get there, although you may think the complete opposite, you're definitely ready, and your school wouldn't recommend you for the test unless they thought you were 100% and fully ready. So try to go in with a little bit of confidence and just be as relaxed as you can. We then completed the paperwork, and then it was just a case of shaking hands and going our separate ways. So yeah, I just tried to share what my experience was. You know, being totally honest, I found it more of a mental game for the multi-engine instrument rating, and probably my hardest bit of training throughout my professional, well, towards becoming a professional pilot. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Don't forget, if you like the video, don't forget to like the video and also to subscribe to the channel. Have a good day. Cheers.